crash landing, and unexpected encounters. The violent shudder of the ship threw Commander Alex Carter forward, his harness barely keeping him in his seat as the control panel flashed a desperate "System failure. Come on, hold together." Alex gritted his teeth, wrestling with the failing controls. The enemy fleet had done a hell of a number on his ship, and now gravity had a stranglehold on him, dragging him down toward the surface of an uncharted planet below. Through the fractured viewport, he saw swirling violet clouds and a vast jungle stretching endlessly beneath him. No clear landing zone, no support, no backup. This was going to be rough. A deafening boom split the air as the ship slammed into the jungle canopy, tearing through thick vegetation before crashing into the damp earth. The impact sent a shockwave through his body, metal groaning and sparks flaring in the shattered cockpit. Then, silence. For a moment, Alex just breathed, his fingers still gripping the flight controls even though they were useless now. Smoke curled from the exposed wires, the acrid scent filling his nose. His entire body ached, but pain meant he was still alive. He'd take it. With a grunt, he unbuckled himself and pushed the cracked canopy open, stumbling out onto unsteady legs. The planet's air was thick, humid, and smelled of something strangely sweet beneath the scent of burning metal. A deep violet sky loomed overhead, unfamiliar constellations twinkling in the dim light. Around him, towering trees with bioluminescent vines pulsed faintly, illuminating the dense jungle in eerie blue-green hues. Strange calls echoed from unseen creatures, some distant, some not so distant. Alex pulled his sidearm from its holster and checked its charge. 2 clips left. He'd need to be smart about how he used them. His first priority was to assess the wreckage. If he could salvage parts from the ship's distress beacon, he might have a chance of sending an SOS before. Snap! His instincts flared to life. He turned sharply, weapon raised, scanning the foliage. Something was watching him. Then, out of the darkness, they came. A group of tall, armored figures emerged from the jungle, weapons drawn. Their skin was a deep cerulean, bioluminescent markings glowing along their muscular frames. Their elongated eyes, completely black, focused on him with predatory intent. Not friendly. Alex barely had time to react before the first one lunged. He rolled aside as an energy blade slashed through the space where he'd been standing, searing the air with a high-pitched hiss. He fired once, his pistol's plasma round slamming into the warrior's chest, sending him sprawling backward. One down. The others hesitated for only a second before closing in. Alex had no choice but to run. He darted through the undergrowth, his boots sinking slightly into the damp soil. Branches whipped against his face, vines tugging at his arms as he sprinted blindly through the jungle. The sounds of pursuit followed. Heavy footfalls, guttural alien shouts. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and completely alone. Then, out of nowhere, a shadowy figure tackled him to the ground. Alex hit the dirt hard, but before he could react, a soft but firm hand clamped over his mouth. A whisper followed, low and urgent. "Stay quiet, human, if you want to live." His pulse pounded as his attacker pressed close, and for the first time, he saw her. She was not like the warriors chasing him. Her skin was a pale shade of sapphire, almost glowing under the bioluminescent canopy. Intricate silver markings trailed from her temples down to her collarbone, delicate yet powerful. Her eyes, brilliant violet, held an intelligence that was sharp and assessing, her gaze searching his face, as if deciding whether he was worth saving. She was breathtaking. But more importantly, who the hell was she? Alex barely had time to process before she pulled him into the thick foliage, her grip surprisingly strong for her slender frame. They crouched behind a massive tree root as the warriors stormed past, their guttural voices exchanging clipped, frustrated words before they disappeared into the jungle. Only then did she release him. Alex exhaled sharply, his body still wired from the chase. You mind telling me what that was about? He rasped, keeping his weapon trained on her, just in case. The woman didn't flinch. Instead, she crossed her arms, tilting her head in curiosity. You're a long way from home, human, she murmured, her voice rich with an accent that was strangely melodic. Yeah, no kidding. Alex frowned. And you are? Her gaze lingered on him for a moment before she finally answered. My name is Kaela. I am not your enemy, she said carefully, as if testing the words. Great, good to know, Alex muttered. He glanced around. So who the hell were those guys? Kaela's expression darkened. My people, or at least the faction that now rules them. They hunt anyone who does not submit to their rule, including me. Alex exhaled. Fantastic. So you're a fugitive too, he noted. Guess that makes two of us. Kaela arched a delicate brow. It seems so. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Alex didn't trust easily, and neither did she. He could see it in the sharp edge of her gaze, the tension in her posture. They were both stranded, both running, and both had everything to lose. He could turn away now, try to survive on his own. But something in him, something primal, instinctive, told him that walking away from her would be the biggest mistake of his life. So instead, he sighed and holstered his weapon. All right, Kaela. I don't trust you. You don't trust me. But for now, we both need to stay alive. He met her gaze. Think we can manage that? Kaela studied him for a long moment before a slow, almost reluctant smile curved her lips. Very well, human, she murmured. Let's see if your kind truly lives up to its legend. Alex smirked. Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea. And with that, the alliance was formed. But neither of them realized that this uneasy truce was only the beginning of survival, of trust, and of a love that would defy the stars themselves. A fragile alliance. The jungle pulsed with life around them. Strange bioluminescent plants twisting toward unseen stars, distant cries of alien creatures breaking the heavy silence between them. Alex Carter adjusted the strap of his survival pack, watching Kaela as she moved effortlessly through the dense undergrowth. She barely made a sound. Alex, on the other hand, was very human in his approach. Despite years of military training, he still snapped the occasional twig underfoot, causing Kaela to shoot him a sharp glance each time. Human, she muttered under her breath, shaking her head. Yeah, I get it. I'm loud. Alex grumbled, stepping carefully over a thick root. Forgive me for not evolving with sneaky alien feet. Kaela didn't reply, but he could have sworn he saw the smallest hint of amusement flicker in her violet eyes before she turned away. For the past hour, they had been moving away from the crash site, putting as much distance between themselves and the warriors hunting them. According to Kaela, they needed to find higher ground, somewhere they could assess their surroundings and plan their next move. So, Alex started, glancing at her. You said those guys back there were your people, but you're running from them. That mean you're some kind of rebel? Kaela hesitated. I was once part of the ruling caste of my people, she said finally, not looking at him. Before the war. War? Alex frowned. Against who? Kaela's jaw tightened, but she didn't answer right away. Instead, she stopped suddenly, her hand shooting out to press against his chest. Alex stilled as she tilted her head slightly, her pointed ears twitching. Don't move, she whispered. His instincts kicked in immediately. Kaela dropped into a crouch, her sharp eyes scanning the trees. Alex followed her gaze, trying to see what had set her on edge. Then he heard it, a low clicking sound. It was rhythmic, growing louder with each passing second. Kaela inhaled sharply. Drek. Alex had no idea what that meant, but from the way she was suddenly tensing, it wasn't good. Run, she whispered. Alex didn't ask questions. He bolted. The clicking sound erupted into an ear-splitting screech, and suddenly the jungle around them exploded with movement. Something massive crashed through the trees, a hulking, multi-limbed creature with spiked appendages and rows of serrated teeth. Its body was covered in dark chitin, glistening under the dim light of the planet's twin moons. Predator. A big one. Alex didn't waste time gawking. He sprinted after Kaela as she darted between the thick trunks, her movements fluid and effortless. The creature barreled after them, crashing through trees like they were nothing. Alex stole a glance over his shoulder and instantly regretted it. It was gaining on them. Suggestions, he yelled. Kaela's gaze flickered around their surroundings, calculating. There. She pointed to a cluster of thick, twisted roots forming a cave-like opening in the earth. Inside. They dove for the entrance just as the beast swiped at them, its razor-sharp talons missing Alex's back by inches. He crashed into the dirt alongside Kaela, breathing hard. The creature let out an angry shriek, its spiked limbs slamming against the entrance. The impact sent a shower of dirt and debris raining down on them. Is it going to give up? Alex whispered. Kaela pressed herself against the cave wall, watching the opening intently. Not likely. Great, Alex muttered. He glanced around. The space they were in wasn't much of a cave. It was more like a natural burrow, barely big enough for the two of them. So, what? We waited out. Kaela was silent for a long moment. Then her gaze flickered toward him, studying him in a way that made his skin prickle. You have courage, she said at last. Alex blinked. Thanks. I guess. Kaela tilted her head. Most would have fled. But you fought. Even when you were outnumbered. Even when survival was unlikely. Yeah, well. Alex shrugged. Humans don't really do well with giving up. It's kind of our thing. Kaela's expression shifted slightly, like she was weighing something in her mind. Then she said, almost hesitantly, I know of a place, an outpost. If we can reach it, we might have a way off this world. Alex's breath hitched, a way off this planet. That was the best news he'd heard all day. Okay, where is it? Kaela exhaled. Deep in the jungle. A 3-day journey on foot. Alex grimaced. Of course, it wouldn't be easy. And let me guess, he muttered, the way is filled with things that want to eat us. Kaela's lips twitched. Likely. Alex let out a long breath, rubbing a hand over his face. Fantastic. Sounds like a hell of a vacation spot. A small chuckle escaped Kaela before she caught herself, quickly masking the expression. For a moment, Alex forgot about the looming dangers outside the burrow. He was too busy staring at her. The way the faint glow of the alien jungle reflected in her eyes. The way the tension in her shoulders had eased, even just slightly. And the way, for the first time since crash landing here, he didn't feel completely alone. He didn't know why, but something in his gut told him that meeting Kaela wasn't just a coincidence. It felt like fate. The creature outside gave one final screech before retreating into the jungle. Kaela's sharp eyes tracked the movement, listening until the sounds faded into the distance. Then she turned back to Alex. It's safe, for now, she murmured. Alex nodded, but he didn't move right away. Because as much as he wanted to get off this planet, there was one thing he was sure of. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about her. Danger and discovery. The jungle had settled into an eerie calm. Only the distant hum of nocturnal creatures filled the thick, humid air as Alex and Kaela emerged cautiously from their makeshift burrow. The predator that had hunted them earlier was gone, but neither of them let their guard down. Alex tightened his grip on his plasma pistol, scanning the area. The massive claw marks on the trees and the churned-up soil where the beast had nearly torn them apart were proof of how close they had come to dying. Kaela moved ahead, her footsteps impossibly light. Alex had to admire her skill. She wasn't just sneaky, she was graceful, like she was made for this terrain. Are we sure it's gone? He asked, keeping his voice low. Kaela didn't respond immediately. Instead, she knelt, her slender fingers brushing the ground. She closed her eyes for a moment, then exhaled. It left, she finally said. For now. Alex raised an eyebrow. You can track it like that? Kaela smirked, the faintest flicker of amusement in her violet eyes. I can read the signs. The Earth speaks if you know how to listen. Alex snorted. That's poetic. I usually just check if something's trying to eat me. Kaela didn't respond, but he thought he caught the briefest glint of amusement before she turned away. He followed her as they moved deeper into the jungle. Their destination was still days away. An ancient outpost that, if they were lucky, might have working technology to contact a passing ship. But luck hadn't exactly been on Alex's side lately. A fragile trust. They walked in tense silence for a while, the only sounds the crunch of foliage beneath their feet and the distant calls of creatures hiding in the dense canopy. Kaela was keeping her distance, physically and emotionally. Alex could sense it. She still didn't fully trust him. You want to tell me what exactly this place we're heading to is? He asked after a while, watching her carefully. You said it was an outpost. What kind? Kaela hesitated. Then, with a sigh, she finally answered. It was built by my ancestors, she said. A long time ago, before the war divided my people, it was used as a sanctuary, a place of knowledge. Alex frowned. And it has some kind of communication system. Kaela nodded. If it still functions, we may be able to send a message beyond this planet's atmosphere. Alex felt a rush of hope, but it was tempered by doubt. And if it doesn't function? He asked. Kaela's gaze darkened. Then we are trapped here, permanently. Alex grimaced. Yeah, no pressure. But something about her tone made him narrow his eyes. You've been there before, he guessed. Kaela didn't answer right away. Her fingers tightened at her sides. Once, she admitted. A long time ago. Alex studied her. What happened? Kaela stopped walking. Her gaze flickered to him, indecision flashing across her features. Then she simply said, I lost someone there. Something tightened in Alex's chest at her words. He could see it in the way her shoulders tensed, the way she avoided looking at him. Whoever she had lost, it had broken something in her. He could relate. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Kaela exhaled. It was a long time ago. But the way her fingers curled into fists told him she still carried it. For a long moment, they just stood there. Then Kaela took a breath and started walking again. Come, she said. We need to move before nightfall. Alex followed, but the weight of her words lingered between them. The ruins. By the time they reached the first signs of the outpost, the sun had started to dip beneath the thick alien trees, casting everything in deep purple shadows. Alex stared. Rising from the jungle, covered in vines and time-worn cracks, was what looked like the remnants of an ancient temple. Towering pillars stretched into the sky, their carvings faded but still intricate. Strange alien glyphs spiraled along the stone walls, glowing faintly in the dim light. Alex let out a slow breath. Not exactly what I pictured when you said outpost, he muttered. Kaela stepped forward, her expression unreadable. It is more than an outpost, she admitted. Alex shot her a look. You want to clarify that? Before she could respond, something moved. Alex snapped his gun up, but Kaela caught his wrist, stopping him. Wait, she murmured. Not an enemy. Alex frowned but didn't lower his weapon. Then, from the shadows of the temple entrance, a figure emerged. At first, Alex thought it was another one of Kaela's kind, but something was off. The figure was tall and skeletal, its skin a dull gray, its eyes empty black voids. A cold chill crawled up Alex's spine. Kaela took a step forward. Guardian, she murmured. The creature's head tilted. Its voice, low and metallic, echoed through the ruins. You have returned, exile. Alex tensed. Exile. His eyes darted to Kaela, but she didn't flinch. She knew this thing, and she had kept that from him. Who is this? Alex asked, keeping his weapon ready. Kaela didn't answer. The Guardian slowly turned its void-like gaze toward Alex. "And you, the outsider." Something about the way it said that made Alex's stomach twist. "Yeah, that's me," he muttered. The Guardian's gaze lingered before it finally stepped aside. "Enter, exile. Your fate awaits." Alex let out a slow breath. He had a feeling he wasn't going to like whatever the hell was waiting inside. But one thing was clear. Kaela wasn't telling him everything. And trust, fragile as it already was hanging by a thread. The ruins loomed over them, ancient and silent, a forgotten relic of a civilization that once thrived. Alex kept his plasma pistol raised, every nerve in his body alert. The Guardian stood motionless, its hollow black eyes fixed on him, but it made no further move. Kaela stepped forward first, her posture tense but steady. She didn't hesitate as she walked through the massive stone archway, her fingers brushing the glowing glyphs on the surface. Alex exhaled sharply and followed. Inside, the air was cooler, thick with the scent of damp stone, and something faintly metallic. Glowing blue lines pulsed along the walls, casting eerie shadows across the massive chamber. The ceiling stretched high, disappearing into darkness. Strange mechanical structures jutted from the floor and walls, half covered in vines and dust, remnants of technology far beyond anything Alex had ever seen. Kaela moved like she had been here before, her fingers trailing over a console embedded in the stone. The glyphs beneath her hand shimmered, and suddenly, the entire room flickered to life. A deep hum vibrated through the air as holographic displays materialized, floating symbols and star charts illuminating the chamber in a ghostly light. Alex took a cautious step forward, scanning the projections. Some of the symbols looked like star maps, but others were something else entirely, schematics, records, histories he couldn't begin to decipher. But Kaela could. She was already sifting through the information, her violet eyes sharp with focus. "You want to tell me what's going on now?" Alex said, breaking the silence. Kaela didn't look at him right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter than before. "This place is more than an outpost. It was once a sanctuary, yes, but also a vault of knowledge. My ancestors built it long before the war divided our people." Alex folded his arms, watching her closely. "And why exactly did your people turn on you?" She hesitated. "Because I refused to follow a path of war." Alex frowned. "That why they were hunting you?" Kaela nodded. "My people are not unified. The ones who chased us are part of the ruling faction, warriors who believe our survival depends on conquest. I was once among them, but I saw what war did, what it took from us." Her fingers curled against the console. "I left. I refused to fight, and so I became a traitor." Alex studied her. He had seen plenty of war himself, had fought in battles that left scars deeper than the ones on his skin. He understood the weight of defying orders, the consequences of standing against your own people. It wasn't an easy thing to do. "And this place," he said slowly, "what's here that makes it so important?" Kaela's eyes flickered to his, hesitation in her gaze. "A message, a warning, something my ancestors left behind, something buried in the archives. If it still exists, it could change everything." Alex exhaled. "You mean getting off this planet isn't our only priority anymore?" Kaela's lips pressed together. "Would you leave, knowing you could stop a war?" Alex ran a hand through his hair. He wasn't some noble hero. He was a soldier, a survivor, a man who had learned long ago that wars were rarely stopped by a single person. And yet, as he looked at Kaela, at the quiet determination in her eyes, he knew she believed in this, believed in something bigger than herself, and maybe, just maybe, he could believe in it too. Before he could respond, a low mechanical chime echoed through the chamber. The floating projections flickered, shifting as if responding to some unseen force. The Guardian, still standing at the entrance, raised its hollow gaze to the ceiling. "Your presence has been recorded," It intoned. The vault will open. Kaela inhaled sharply as the stone beneath them rumbled. A massive section of the floor retracted, revealing a deep passage leading underground. A cold draft wafted up from the depths, carrying with it the scent of ancient machinery and something else, something unsettling. Alex exchanged a look with Kaela. I take it this is the part where we go deeper into the creepy ruins. Kaela's lips twitched, but there was no humor in her expression. If the records survived, they will be down there. Alex checked his pistol's charge. Then let's not keep history waiting. They descended into the darkness, the glow of the holographic displays fading behind them. The stairs spiraled downward, the walls narrowing as they moved deeper. The air grew colder, the hum of unseen technology thrumming around them. Alex could feel it in his bones, a steady vibration beneath his boots. At the bottom of the passage, they stepped into a vast chamber lined with towering monolithic slabs of smooth, glowing stone. Each one pulsed faintly with inscriptions, ancient records encoded in the very fabric of the walls. Kaela approached one of the slabs, pressing her palm against it. The symbols reacted instantly, cascading into fluid patterns as they rearranged themselves. A voice, hollow and layered, filled the chamber. The war of the divided is inevitable. The cycle repeats. The path must be broken. Kaela's breath hitched. This is it. Alex watched as the symbols formed an image, a celestial map marked with pathways and coordinates, leading to places beyond this planet, beyond anything he recognized. Their war isn't just about this world, Kaela whispered. It's bigger. They are seeking something, something buried across the stars. Alex frowned. And you think this message is the key to stopping them? Kaela turned to him, her gaze fierce. I think it's the key to understanding why the war keeps repeating. If we can find out what they are really searching for, we might be able to end it before it consumes more than just my people. Alex let out a slow breath. He had come here for survival, for escape. But now, standing in the heart of something ancient and powerful, he realized he was standing at a crossroads. He could walk away, take the first chance. He got to leave this planet and never look back. Or he could stay, stand beside her, fight for something greater than just his own survival. Kaela was watching him, waiting for his answer. And in that moment, Alex knew his choice. I'm in, he said, his voice steady. Kaela's expression softened, a flicker of relief in her eyes. Then we move quickly. If they find out we've accessed this, they will come. Alex cracked his knuckles. Then let's be gone before they get the chance. As they turned to leave, the chamber let out a low, resonant pulse. The walls trembled, and in the depths of the ruin, something stirred. The past was waking up. And so was the war. The low vibration in the air deepened into a steady hum, and the stone slabs that lined the chamber trembled as if awakening from a centuries-old slumber. Alex tightened his grip on his plasma pistol, his instincts screaming that something wasn't right. Kaela stood frozen, her eyes locked on the ancient inscriptions shifting along the monoliths, their soft glow intensifying. Then the vault spoke again. The cycle must be broken. The Harbinger returns. Alex shot Kaela a sharp glance. Tell me that's just some ancient prophecy nonsense, and not something actively trying to kill us. Kaela, however, wasn't looking at him. She was staring at the symbols, her violet eyes wide with recognition. This wasn't part of the records I studied before. Something new has been triggered. Alex didn't like the sound of that. The monoliths pulsed in synchronized patterns, a ripple of light flowing from one to another as if relaying a message. Then the entire chamber shook, dust and debris cascading from the ceiling. A deep metallic groan echoed from somewhere far above them. That sounds like bad news, Alex muttered, shifting on the balls of his feet. Kaela barely hesitated before spinning toward him. We need to leave. Now. Alex didn't need to be told twice. They sprinted for the staircase, the vault's strange humming growing louder. As they reached the first steps, The slabs along the walls suddenly shifted, revealing hollow alcoves. And inside them, something moved. Alex barely had time to process the nightmare unfolding before him before the first guardian stepped out. Unlike the skeletal figure they had encountered at the entrance, these were larger, faster, and unmistakably hostile. Their sleek metallic forms gleamed under the dim blue light, their elongated limbs folding unnaturally as they activated, ancient dust cascading from their exoskeletons. Then their eyes ignited, burning pinpricks of blue flame in hollow sockets. "Go, go, go," Alex shouted, shoving Kaela forward. The guardians lurched to life, their movements unnervingly fluid, almost predatory. They moved in eerie unison, silent but swift, their spindly legs eating up the ground with unnatural speed. Alex turned and fired. His plasma shot slammed into the nearest guardian's chest, sending a spray of molten metal into the air. But the thing didn't even slow down. It kept coming, its empty gaze fixed on them, as if his attack had been nothing more than an inconvenience. "Yeah, okay, that's terrifying," Alex muttered under his breath. Kaela darted up the stairs, her movements swift, but Alex could tell she was straining. The energy she had spent deciphering the monoliths, the emotional weight of what they had just uncovered, it was wearing on her. But they couldn't stop now. The second guardian lunged. Alex barely twisted out of the way as a razor-thin blade unfolded from its wrist, slicing through the air where his head had been a second earlier. He ducked, rolled, and fired again, this time aiming for its joints. The shot hit home. One of the guardian's legs buckled, sending it crashing sideways. But it didn't fall. Its other limbs snapped out, catching itself mid-motion like a spider resetting its stance. Unfair. Alex gritted, cursing whatever advanced engineering had created these things. Kaela reached the top of the staircase, breathless. "Hurry." Alex pushed his body into overdrive, sprinting up the last few steps as the guardians closed in. Just as he reached Kaela, she slammed her hand onto the console at the entrance. The vault's doors shuddered. Then, with a deafening clang, they slammed shut. Silence. Alex stood there, chest heaving, sweat dripping down his temple. The only sound was his own pounding heartbeat in his ears. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Kaela let out a slow breath and leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. That was close. "Yeah, no kidding," Alex muttered, still gripping his pistol tightly. What the hell were those things? Kaela opened her eyes, a shadow passing over her expression. "The Sentinels, guardians of the ancient records. I did not know they still functioned." Alex exhaled. "Great, so we just pissed off a bunch of ancient alien security robots. Awesome." Kaela's expression softened slightly at his sarcasm, but the weight of what had just happened lingered between them. They had triggered something down there, something that wasn't supposed to wake up. Alex holstered his pistol, turning to her fully. "Okay, now that we're not getting dismembered, tell me, what exactly did we just find?" Kaela hesitated. Then she spoke slowly. The message wasn't just a warning about the war. It was a prophecy, one that speaks of a cycle that has repeated for generations, a war that is destined to reignite unless something or someone breaks it. Alex frowned. And this harbinger thing it mentioned, that part sounded specific. Kaela nodded. It did. Her gaze flickered to him, unreadable. "And I do not believe it was referring to me." Alex felt a cold weight settle in his chest. He didn't like where this was going. "Wake," he said, the realization hitting him like a freight train. "You think it was talking about me?" Kaela's silence was answer enough. Alex ran a hand over his face. "Unbelievable. I came here just trying to not die. And now you're telling me I'm part of some ancient prophecy." Kaela's lips twitched, though there was something almost sad in her expression. "It would seem the universe has plans for you, Alex Carter." Alex groaned. "Well, the universe can go to hell." Kaela actually laughed, soft but genuine, and Alex found himself smiling despite everything. Then the ground beneath them rumbled. Alex snapped his gaze to Kaela. She tensed. They're coming. He didn't need to ask who. The ruling faction of her people, the ones who wanted war. If they had tracked them to this location, they were already too close. Alex squared his shoulders. No more running. His fate might have been written in ancient stone, but that didn't mean he was just going to accept it. He had fought against impossible odds before, and if the universe thought he was going to be its harbinger, then he would decide what that meant. He turned to Kaela, his voice steady. Then we fight. She held his gaze for a moment, then nodded. And as the jungle around them came alive with the sounds of approaching soldiers, Alex knew one thing for certain. This war wasn't over. It was just beginning.